Jimmy Butler and the Warriors needed each other. Now they need to prove they can still win. Jimmy Butler urgently needed to get out of Miami, and the Golden State Warriors were urgently in need of a true co-star for Stephen Curry, as they suddenly realized what year was on his birth certificate. The two sides came within a few inches of a finals meeting in 2022, when Butler's Game 7 pull-up three came up short, only to set the stage for Curry to have his shining moment against the Boston Celtics 2 weeks later. 3 seasons later they joined together, a marriage based on need as much as desperation. Butler wanted to be validated by way of location and contract, which he received in the form of a 2-year extension worth $121 million after his relationship with the Miami Heat went sour. And the Warriors had to circle back to Butler when Kevin Durant sent word that a reunion wasn't desirable, that essentially he was happy with his 2 championships and memories in those 3 years. Another run, though, not what he looked forward to. It's funny how quickly things can change in today's NBA. It's not just Luka Doncic being traded for Anthony Davis. It's Butler wanting to team up with Durant in Phoenix, not being traded for him, as was speculated over the last 24 hours, and certainly not being viewed as a de facto replacement for Durant either. But the Suns couldn't convince a team to take on Bradley Beal's contract, or even Beal to drop his no-trade clause to facilitate such a move, in order to bring Butler aboard in a move that could have resulted in Butler and Durant raising hell together for opposing teams. Instead, it was Butler raising hell for the Miami Heat franchise that prides itself on keeping things simple, finding the players who fit their famed culture and excommunicating those who don't. If he helps the Warriors win, the reaction will be minimal, and nobody will care what headaches he gave Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley, because he's delivering wins. But if he stumbles over unseen roadblocks, the laugh tracks will be played. Beyond the initial reaction, the questions remain. How does Butler fit into Steve Kerr's offensive system? And how will he handle playing on Stephen Curry's team, with Draymond Green as top lieutenant? Butler has his contract, the most any team could offer given his age, 35. And the restrictions placed by the collective bargaining agreement. His exit from Miami was ugly and unnecessary, but let's not forget the type of big game player he's been at every stop. He's unfairly called selfish, fairly termed as disruptive, but almost always has made the right plays and been about the right things. He doesn't mind being the misunderstood villain, but that's a nice role to play until you need someone to understand. And it's no guarantee Curry and Green and Kerr actually do get the method to his madness. The Warriors thrive on joy, while Butler likes to see who can stand up to him in a burning inferno. Joy meets joyful pain. Butler can blend into a team atmosphere on the floor as well as anyone, even though he's played the role as franchise savior more than once. It's an underrated quality many forget about when mentioning his multiple stops. Those teams got better when he was there, and his imprint was obvious. Those wins were obscured by the chaos that often followed behind, and one can portend the Warriors won't experience the same fire and rage he aimed at the Heat, given the mercurial nature of the relationship. Butler arrives as almost the perfect complement to Curry, a tough guy who's more than happy to back it up, while Curry keeps his fire smoldering beneath the surface. Now, can Butler deliver to the tune of his last 3 playoff appearances, when he was arguably the best player in the NBA postseason not named Nikola Jokic? The guy who averaged 27 points with 5 assists and 7 rebounds with a more than respectable 48/35/82/ line. He's not the traditional Kerr player who can easily flow into being a high-volume 3-point shooter, but he's a timely one, and Kerr will take that, especially with Curry wearing down, seemingly, game by game. Kerr has to be wondering how he will handle both Green and Butler at the same time. Green comes with his own factory settings, but Kerr has dealt with that for a decade. Butler challenges and pokes and will not let anything slide, and he doesn't have the same equity or franchise backing Green does, despite the lofty contract. Butler doesn't have to be on his best behavior for any other reason besides the fact he wants to. The fact the Warriors threw him a life raft out of desperation and plan to love on him the way they feel he's been neglected in Miami, it said. Kerr was somewhat still in shock following the departure of Andrew Wiggins, a puzzling talent who came up big in the 2022 finals, but battled inconsistency and personal issues since.